First story, the trees encircling the Hollow Vale campsite were covered in lengthy shadows as the sun set. The faint flare of warmth and light provided by the roaring bonfire seemed to fade in the face of the approaching darkness. This is the story of a terrifying story that took place in the eerie solitude of the woods, a camping trip that turned it into a nightmare come true. A group of friends gathered around the campfire as night fell, their faces lit up by the dancing flames. The air was heavy with laughter and companionship, a comforting counterpoint to the strange noises rustling through the undergrowth. The de facto leader of the group, John, gave them a thrilling introduction to the area's paranormal past, setting the stage for an exhilarating evening. Although the first night appeared uneventful, the campground began to feel chilly for no apparent reason. There was the normal nocturnal symphony of insects and rustling leaves, but the forest was eerily calm. The forests appeared to be holding its breath, as seen by the muted crackle that the blazing fire produced. Unease started to nibble at the edges of their consciousness as the second night wore on. Outside their field of vision, shadows moved, and the wind spoke secrets that were just out of earshot. John tried to tell them that their fears were just hallucinations, but uncertainty had set in. Their camping adventure took an unsettling turn on the third night. There was a soft tapping noise in the forest, like tiny fingers tapping on tree trunks. John dismissed the notion of ghosts, blaming the sounds for the nearby fauna. However, the tapping continued, getting louder and more forceful, as though it was a demand for their attention. They followed the light from their flashlights into the woods, trying to figure out what was causing the mysterious tapping. Every step felt like a plunge into the unknown because of the weird, unearthly mist that seemed to linger in the air. The tapping brought them to a clearing with a lone, gnarled tree whose branches were twisted and distorted. The tapping stopped as they got closer to the tree, and a spooky silence descended upon them. There was a small worn doll at the base of the tree, visible through the ethereal illumination thrown by the moon on its roots. They shuddered at the sight of it, its glass eyes seeming to glitter with malice. The wind-borne whispers of voices seemed to suddenly come alive in the woods. Their ears were filled with the somber sorrow of the forest, as though the trees themselves were lamenting a long-gone catastrophe. Fearful looks were exchanged among the group as John's arrogance faltered. John picked up the doll with a dismissive motion, thinking only of himself as a moron. But a bolt of electricity shot through him as soon as his fingers contacted the surface of the doll. The woods seemed to throb with a sinister force, and the air turned chilly. The doll's eyes locked on John, and a menacing voice spoke of old curses and a need for vengeance from its tiny porcelain mouth. The gang fell into a panic, realizing they were trapped in an unexplainable nightmare. Their flight was driven by desperation as they stumbled back to the encampment. Their flashlights wavered, creating uneven beams of light that extended into the shadows on the ground as the woods appeared to close in on them. The light and warmth of the fire back at the campsite brought just a momentary sense of consolation. The eerie calm of the woodland descended once more, and the doll's words reverberated in their heads. A fear that was eating away at their sanity was heightened by the sound of distant owl hoots and rustling leaves. The woods seemed to breathe out as the first rays of dawn peeked over the horizon, freeing them from the nightmare hold. Tired and shook, they packed up their camping and abandoned the horrific experience. Before they turned to face the woods, the doll appeared to give them one more stare, abandoned now. They felt a wave of relief as they rolled out of the Hollow Vale campsite. However, the eerie forests and their menacing whispers continued to stalk them. They would never be the same after the encounter, which served as a constant reminder that danger lurks around every corner, even in the most tranquil of environments. The light kept rising, illuminating the darkness with a warm glow that eventually vanished the shadows. However, the memory of that spooky night would live on in the hearts of those who had encountered the horrors of Hollow Vale camping, serving as a constant reminder that certain mysteries are best left unsolved. Misty Pines Campground Story 2. When a group of friends pulled at Misty Pines Campground, the mist was thick in the air, The tall trees gave the impression of continuing forever into the drab sky, their branches covered in a ghostly mist that gave the surroundings a surreal quality. This is the terrifying account of a camping vacation that turned into a terrifying spiral, all taking place in the enigmatic forest mists. An atmosphere of excitement and eagerness pervaded the group as they set up their campsite. The laughing reverberated through the trees, and the roaring campfire provided a warm haven amidst the cool dampness. Eager to add a little thrill to their camping trip, Amy, the group's brave leader, entertained them with stories of the fabled hauntings at the park. The first night was unremarkable. The tents danced with the flickering light of the campfire. The party slept peacefully into their sleeping bags as the rustling leaves and chirping crickets of the forest created a calming background noise. However, as the second night approached, a peculiar discomfort appeared to descend upon the encampment. The mist became heavier, blotting out the outside world and drowning out the smallest sounds. The familiar terrain looked foreign now, even the glow from the campfire appearing weak against the engulfing blackness. The mist became into an impenetrable fog during the third night, and it clung to the trees like spectral fingers. The gang was clustered around the campfire, their laughing forced, the tension in the air tangible. The ghosts of long-gone voices appeared to whisper secrets in the mist. Despite the eerie environment, Amy suggested they explore the trails in an effort to keep their spirit of adventure intact. With reluctance, the group nodded, their flashlights piercing the mist like rays of light through thick fog. The well-known markings on the trail were hidden, and every step they took appeared to take them farther into the unknown. They felt something uneasy come over them as they continued on their journey. The path appeared to be veering off course, almost as though the jungle was guiding them wrong. When they saw that the once clear path had turned into a confusing maze, panic started to set in. Amy tried to follow their route again, but the scenery was surreal, and the fog appeared to warp their vision. Hours went by, and the group's flashlights started to flicker, which made them more desperate. They were all filled with a sense of dread, even though Amy's voice was shaking as she attempted to rouse them. The mist started to change, turning into figures that danced just beyond their field of vision, tired and distraught. With some direction, the troop came across a clearing. A single tree stood in the middle, its branches extending upward as though it were pining for the stars. Ethereal fabric strands fluttered in the breeze, hanging from its limbs. They became aware as they got closer that every piece of cloth had a name, names that reverberated throughout their memories. The names were their own, and it hit them like a flash of lightning. Their hearts pounded in their chests as fear overcame them. The fog appeared to encircle them, its strands pressing on their flesh like cold fingers. Amy stammered as she tried to speak, but the swirling mist ate up her words. The mist closed in around them, its touch intrusive and chilling, making time appear to lose all meaning. Whispered voices appeared to reverberate through the atmosphere as shadows swirled on the edges of their eyesight. With their flashlights dead, they were left in complete darkness. The ghostly glimmer of the fabric thread served as their sole guide. A light flared through the mist in the distance, just as panic began to overwhelm them. A search party's shapes materialized, their shouts piercing the night like a lifeline. The fabric threads vanished into thin air as the mist started to clear, taking with it all that had been. The group's terrifying ordeal came to an end when they were saved. The first of the sun's rays illuminated their tired features as they emerged from the mist-covered woods. The eerie atmosphere of the campground appeared to dissipate as the woodland lost its hold. Their shared nightmare had strengthened the group's relationship even though the mist had hidden unspeakable atrocities. They would never forget the haunting at Misty Pines campsite, a constant reminder that not all paths are intended to be taken and that some mysteries are best left unsolved. Story 3. Campsite at Silent Hollow. The campground at Silent Hollow was tucked away in a secluded area of forest, shrouded in mystery. With their high canopy creating variegated shadows on the forest floor, the towering trees gave the impression of forming an impregnable castle. This is the narrative of a camping vacation gone spooky, a story told in the mysterious stillness of the countryside. A group of friends gathered around the campfire as twilight descended, the warm warmth casting shadows over their features. The air was full with laughter and companionship, yet beneath their good humor lurked a hint of dread. The group's daring explorer, Rachel, was excited to give their camping trip an adrenaline rush by sharing terrifying stories of Silent Hollow's mysteries. The first night went by without any problems, with the dancing shadows created by the blazing bonfire appearing to move in time with the breeze. The group fell asleep with a sense of security as the soothing sound of chirping insects filled the forest. However, a weird silence crept upon the campground as the second night wore on. There was an uncomfortable silence in place of the woodland symphony, only sometimes disturbed by the sound of rustling leaves. The group's chuckles seemed to die in their throats, giving way to apprehensive looks. The jungle appeared to hold its breath as the third night approached. Shadows flickered on the edge of their eyesight, and there was an unsaid tension in the air. The familiar landscape seemed to be changing, as if the weight of secrets was shifting the very trees. Resolved to seize the opportunity, Rachel recommended hiking at night to a nearby clearing. With hesitation, the group followed the meandering trail, their spotlights piercing the darkness as they went. The silence of the forest was deafening, and every stride seemed like a breach into some other realm. A ghostly mist appeared to rise from the ground as they arrived in the clearing, giving the surrounding area an otherworldly glow. The moon was low in the sky, illuminating weird patterns carved into the ground with its faint light. The group looked at each other warily, their uneasiness mounting. The mist started to come together and assumed ominous shapes that seemed to have a life of their own. The breeze brought whispers, as though the forest itself was whispering. Anxiety mounted among the group, and they began to feel as though they were being observed. Fear seized them as the shadows in the forest appeared to swell and twist, seemingly attempting to catch them. A voice, old and ominous, came out of the mist in the middle of the unsettling scene. Its words wormed their way into their consciousness, speaking of rituals long forgotten and a presence reawakened. The voice's increasing tempo caused their fear to immobilize them, causing them to breathe shallowly. With a counterweight to the ancient chant, Rachel's voice joined in. The group gasped in shock as they saw Rachel's body appear to be controlled by an extraterrestrial force, and her eyes to sparkle with an abnormal brightness. Their surroundings were a swirl of trees and mist as they staggered back along the trail, their flight driven by desperation. The stillness of the woodland was broken by the sound of ghostly whispering and shadows that appeared to be lashing out at them. The beams from their flashlights flickered, creating strange shadows that moved across the trees. There was some sort of comfort in the crackling warmth and light of the bonfire back at the campsite. Rachel was scared and confused since her possession had ended. The campfire seemed to cast a shield of light around them, keeping the oppressive presence of the forest at bay. The gang gathered closer together as the night went on, looking for cover there. They found themselves in a realm of flickering firelight as the mist and murmurs of the forest disappeared. Their faces were glowing warmly as the first rays of dawn emerged from the horizon. With their common experience ingrained in their memories, the party packed up their encampment. They felt a wave of relief as they left the encampment at Silent Hollow behind. They had been permanently changed by the mysteries and secrets of the forest, a reminder that some locations are portals to worlds best left unexplored. The sun kept rising, illuminating everything with a golden glow that chased away the last of the shadows. However, the recollection of that eerie night would remain a whispered secret for those who had witnessed the horrors of Silent Hollow. It served as a reminder that ancient forces still stirred in the middle of the woods, just waiting to be awakened.